Welcome to another Space Marine Forgotten Heroes from Northern Monkeys. This time we're looking at Iron Father Feirros, whatever you want to call him. Either way, he's a weird unit, but let's get into why he's weird and why he's not seen despite being part of probably one of the most popular chapters to see on the tabletop. So right off the start, let's talk about his data sheet. So 95 points, kind of on the upper tier for Space Marine heroes. Not exactly like an Azrael or something like that, or a High Marshal Helbrecht, but still, up there. He's definitely way more expensive than like a Librarian, a Captain. I think a normal Tech Marine's 55 points, which is kind of like almost half his points. But you get a lot for all that 45 points. He's a really cool character. Obviously, he's Iron Hands, which kind of means he locks you into Iron Hands, as you see down in the faction keyword there. And since he's the only thing in Iron Hands, he kind of has to be really good for you to not want to take him over stuff like Calgar, Azrael, as mentioned, all these other really competitive choices. So let's have a look at what he has to offer here. So right off the start, he has a really good profile. Toughness 6, a 2-up save. He doesn't have an invuln, but kind of with the way Space Marines are, like even AP2, it still only takes him to a 4-up save. If you get AP3, then Armor of Contempt keeps him on a 4-up. So not having that invuln isn't like the end of the world. And then in terms of his actual attacks, he's pretty decent. He has that Gorgon's Wrath, sustained hits 2, which is nice and spiky, and it has a really long range. So if you're sort of plinking at enemies, it's always going to have that range to do so. And you might, chip the odd wound off an enemy, or even spike and potentially kill like 2 or 3 out of a squad. So it's definitely nice to have, and it's cool that it kind of makes him like a Tech Marine character that he has a decent gun. And then in melee, even though it's not his forte with his lowly weapon skill 3+, which is going to be annoying, trust me, the amount of 2s that you roll on characters like this is quite crazy. But he makes up for his lack of accuracy with volume. Guys, 8 attacks. They're all generally high quality, basically power fist attacks. The Medusan Manipuli there, even being 3 damage. So even though he seems like, he might be a bit more shooty, he does definitely punch in combat. Like, this guy isn't not going to contribute to your unit. And in terms of his actual abilities, the first thing to talk about is the fact that he functions exactly as a Tech Marine, basically. Everything except for that first ability is just the way a Tech Marine works. Which, is nice, the lone op, so he can hang around vehicles and help them, be a bit of punch in combat if needed, and he can heal vehicles, send them, give them +1 to hit. That's really good. If you're investing in something like a Redemptor Dreadnought, you really want to see that kind of working for you, just getting to hit on 2s, or even a big tank like the ever so popular Repulsor Executioners. So it can be really nice for stuff like that. Obviously, Space Marines have a lot of access to rerolls, or just a normal Tech Marine can do that. So what's going to set these guys aside from a Tech Marine, apart from his stats, is that Rite of Tempering ability. So Rite of Tempering is pretty massive, and it's one of those things with these epic heroes. Like, it's insane that on a 95-point data sheet, you've got an ability where he gives a tanky unit. They can lead many tanky units. In fact, he exclusively leads tanky units. You give them a 5-up feel no pain. It's a massive buff, and on a character that costs less than 100 points, you'd think it would be something that people would want to take, but for various reasons, as we'll talk about in the next section, it isn't. It's a good unit though, like a good buff. Like, if you're gonna get shot by damage 3 stuff, which tends to be the bane of aggressors, obviously massive help for things like that, and it just generally helps keep the unit very survivable. I ran this guy with a block of aggressors in the Raven Guard style detachment, and it was a very, very tough unit, obviously with the range debuffs to enemy shooting, giving them cover, giving them -1 to hit, and his own feel no pain. It just made the unit a real nightmare to shift, because nothing you fired at them was really solidly going to get through. Like, a Redemptor could open up with its plasma cannon and, oh, suddenly it's missed half of its shots. Oh, and suddenly, like, the 2 shots that did go through, one of them got hit, got a 5-up feel no pain. Oh, then the next 2, that kills a guy, but like, okay, you killed 1 aggressor with your whole activation. So yeah, I really like it. It's just pretty cool to have that 5-up feel no pain available because, as I said, this guy can lead some really tanky units. So let's talk about those next. So this is my own kind of kit bashed Iron Father Feirros. I use this model with different backpacks to represent different epic heroes from the Space Marine line, just to avoid having to pay tons of money for the kits. Now, yeah, so let's talk back to Feirros though. So who can he lead? It's Eradicators, Heavy Intercessors, and Aggressors. One thing that I would say speaks to his clunkiness is he blocks other leaders, which means because he's not a captain, he's an Iron Father, which is different to a captain. It means you can't put the Apothecary Biologus in the unit with him, because that can only be attached with a captain. So you kind of lose out on an access to an enhancement in whatever unit he leads, which is why I think he isn't taken. I think he might be considered if you could do that. So it would be a nice quality of life thing for Iron Hands players to sort of play their chapter again. I know obviously you've got the detachment that everyone plays. Iron Hands have kind of been one of the best chapters in the game for a few editions in a row now. Regardless of kind of the nuance, they've always been up there in terms of strength. So it would be cool if to see Feirros, because you used to see him a lot when you were kind of locked to just having him. But now you're not, so he gets left by the wayside, which is a shame. So he can lead aggressors. It's kind of cool getting that sort of all those buffs onto them. So that's what I'll talk about later. But right now, Eradicators, I think he's okay in them. They're a good anti-tank choice for Space Marines. He could even help hurt vehicles a little bit with all those rerolls that he'll get on with his gun. So that's cool. It's like a nice little synergy there, and it will keep them alive. However, Eradicators for me, they tend to be a unit that kind of pops out, fires their guns, and then is kind of left for your opponent to have to deal with. However, one thing that we're interested in my little playgroup is definitely the Heavy Intercessors. Iron Father Feirros leading them would be an absolute to shift, because you can get 10 of them in the unit. So all those 10 guys all get the 5-up feel no pain, and they already get a durability buff, I believe extra armor save against 1 damage stuff. So that'll make them really, really solid. And they're very cost efficient for like their kind of points. So him leading a unit would be really, really cool. But the last unit, let's talk about aggressors. So aggressors, they're a really good data sheet in my mind. They're 120 points for a reason, because they're 120 points of pure devastation. However, that is in a very specific context of the Gladius task force. For those that don't know, you take the aggressors, you put an Apothecary Biologus in them, or you could do this with a captain as well, and you give them the Bolter Discipline trait or enhancement, which would then mean that they get sustained hits, which is already good for the Boltstorm aggressors, but then they'll get lethal hits from the Apothecary, and you combo that with the fact that they get crits on 5s in the Dev Doctrine through that enhancement, and all of a sudden they can just melt things. Like I've had these guys kill Catan in a single activation. That's pretty scary. And most other things, as you can imagine, if they're killing Catan, they're killing most things in the game. I'd say even unless you have like Armor of Contempt on a 2-up save, these guys are going to decimate you. And even if you do have that, they have access. If you can get the Close Quarters Firepower ability off, combine it with the Stratagem for an extra pip of AP in the Dev Doctrine that Gladius has, all of a sudden AP2 ignores cover. Yeah, it's scary. And so that's the thing. Aggressors are good because of that combo. That's why they're 120 points for 3. I don't think they remotely justify that price tag outside of that specific combo, which is why Iron Father Feirros is kind of muddled, because without him being a captain, you can't attach that Apothecary Biologus, therefore you can't get that combo rolling. So that sucks, but I don't think it's the end of the world, because they're already a good unit, like I said, maybe a little bit overpriced, but with Iron Father Feirros giving that 5-up feel no pain, I don't know. Maybe that is quite a cool way of running them. All of a sudden you take a 6-man probably, which, you know, this unit's going to be running you up into like the 300 plus points, but I've played it and I've found it to be actually cost effective, surprisingly, just from the sheer durability it has for holding primary points. And they still kick out a lot of bullets. Now, you could, with Feirros, you could run them with the Flamestorm gauntlets. I think that's underrated, you know, D6 plus 1 shots each. They get AP. It's nice. It's nice. And the twin linked means you're going to be hurting most things. You obviously lose out on the range, but you know, the auto hits is nice, especially as like an Overwatch threat. Nobody wants to get slammed by that. Yeah, now in terms of actually like synergies there, they obviously get that massive durability boost, but also the close quarters firepower. That makes his gun, which is already quite formidable if you remember, that'll make his gun go up to AP2. Actually makes it kind of dangerous, especially with the sustained hits. You know, if you get a big pop-off turn, he could really end up chunking some enemy units. But yeah, overall I'd say this is the unit that you want to put him in. It just synergizes the best with him. But that brings me back to the Iron Father's kind of fatal flaw, really, is that his abilities kind of war with each other. You want him to be in a unit that gets his 5-up feel no pain because it's so great, and he's not worth the points to do that outside of, like, why not just take a Tech Marine? Why are you trying to have this, like, awkward, fighty character there? So then you get that buff, you get the 5-up feel no pain, but then all of a sudden he kind of has to be, if you want to get use out of his Tech Marine ability, the heal a vehicle, give it +1 to hit, you kind of need to be stomping up a vehicle and always keeping it within range of him, which is where the difficulty comes in with the character. He's just kind of, he's trying to do 2 different things at once and paying the points to do those 2 different things, but not necessarily being able to do them both. Now, would this guy and his unit of aggressors stomping up alongside a Redemptor, would they be pretty good? They would, but now you've got 500, 600 points of units all balling around together. But you never know. Maybe it'd work. I think if the unit kind of hugs cover to get that and make them even more durable than they already were, I think this guy can really, really work. So yeah, Iron Father Feirros, unit of aggressors. I rate it. It's a cool combo. I've played it myself in a couple of games and it didn't disappoint. But I think with the price increases, it's always going to be a kind of a tough sell to invest that much in a unit. But let me know what you guys think. So yeah, comment down below what you think of the guy. Have you ran him? Have you tried him in your own games and got good results? Have you tried him maybe Eradicators is the play, or maybe it is those heavy intercessors as my play group suspects. Either way, thanks for watching. It's a bit of a deep dive into Iron Father Feirros. Probably went on as long as it did because he's a weird unit. There's a lot to say about him. So yeah, like and subscribe and all that jazz. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.